This week, I watched CODA. CODA is an acronym for Child of Deaf Adults. This movie follows Ruby as the only member of her family that can hear. Her parents, Frank and Jackie, and her brother Leo were all born deaf and have profound hearing loss. They only communicate through sign language. The family owns a fishing boat that is facing difficult times, and they rely heavily on Ruby to help with the business. Ruby, however, has hopes and ambitions to go to college for singing, a passion that she can't easily share with her family. Portrayal of the disability. These are characteristics of hearing loss from our textbook. When it comes to intelligence, intelligence is usually similar between deaf individuals and hearing individuals. Difficulties are usually associated with speaking, writing, and reading. Speech and language is what is most affected. Children born deaf have a very difficult time learning to speak. Mild to moderate hearing loss, however, might result to minimal effects on speech and language. When it comes to social interactions, they rely heavily on communication skills. The quality of social interactions of peers is thereby inhibited when an individual cannot hear. In the movie, Frank and Leo, her father and brother, are excluded by most of the other fishers and often mocked. They're called names such as freak. Ruby is also excluded at school because of her family. She's mocked because of their disability, and she's left out of the popular cliques. When it comes to social growth, this can also be hindered. This is shown in the movie by her parents having very different boundaries about sex compared to her hearing peers' counterparts. When it comes to educational achievement, this is usually significantly below the hearing peers. In the movie, Frank and Leo own a fishing business and did not go to college. Reading performance is also typically lower. Degrees of hearing loss. There are 6 degrees when it comes to hearing loss: minimal, mild, moderate, moderate to severe, severe, and profound. This movie mostly focuses on the profound side because the family cannot communicate through any means other than visual avenues, such as sign language. Psychosocial stigma. People with disabilities are different from fully human. They are partial or limited people. This view is shown in the movie as Frank and Leo are often taken advantage of in the business, and it's up to Ruby to be the one that can stand up for them. The burden of disability is unending, and able-bodied stand under continual obligation to help them. This deeply weighs on Ruby as she decides whether or not to go to college or pursue singing. Angie sacrifices her own happiness for the sake of her family throughout the movie. Another way that this is shown is through the illustrating the reality and does not seek pity, challenges social conscious of disability. This follows a recent trend of better representation in Hollywood about disabilities. Something that I think is admirable that this movie does is the 3 main deaf characters, Jackie, Frank, and Leo, are all played by actual deaf Americans. Another psychosocial stigma is non-disabled usually treat the disabled poorly. This is shown throughout the movie as the family is often mocked, laughed at behind their back, and excluded. The effects on individuals. I think this movie does a great job giving sympathy to deaf families and just understanding of the deaf community in general. Gives a lot more understanding of the challenges that deaf Americans face on a daily basis and the value that a hearing individual brings to that family. It also represents just how deaf families socialize and interact. And even though they can't do some of the same activities as a family, like listening to music, they're still able to socialize and spend time together in other ways. It also highlights that the lack of accommodations that exist in many aspects of their lives, such as there's no interpreter that works for their fishing company, and they have to go out of their way to make their own accommodations to have a hearing individual on their fishing boat so that they're compliant with laws. This was a great experience for me. I really, really enjoyed this movie and couldn't recommend it more. I think it does a great job showing that enjoyment can look different to individuals and come from different aspects. For example, while her family wasn't able to appreciate their daughter Ruby's singing, they were able to appreciate the words that the song was about, and they could see the reaction from the crowd and how much joy she was bringing all these other people. It also is a great lesson in patience and grace. Um, in as far as being a teacher goes, I think it really does a great job highlighting that there are wide degrees of student responsibilities at home and lots that they might have going on. And also, it shows the impact of believing in a student and helping them follow their passion one of through Ruby being mentored by her music teacher, Mr. B. Thank you, and here are also the references.